waiting for you to fill me up. My heart is yearning for you. I'm thirsty, desperate for you to satisfy. I'm ready to breathe you in. Wake me up inside. I want to feel alive. I want to breathe you in. I want to drink your living water. I want to breathe you into me. I want to breathe you in. I want to drink your living water. I want to breathe you into me. Restless, wanting for you to move in me. My hands are reaching for you. I'm stirring and needing for you to come inspire. I'm ready to breathe you in. Wake me up inside. I want to feel alive. I want to breathe you in. I want to drink your living water. I want to breathe you into me. I want to breathe you in. I want to drink your living water. I want to breathe you into me. Wake me up inside. I want to feel alive. Come on and wake me up inside. I want to feel alive. I want to breathe you in. I want to drink your living water. I want to breathe you into me. I want to breathe you in. I want to drink your living water. I want to breathe you into me.
So I want to welcome you in. Thank you so much, Jesse, for setting the tone of our worship. And what I want to do is I want to begin with a scripture verse, and this scripture verse is going to frame basically for us our conversation. And there's going to be, we'll pull this scripture verse out later on in our conversation as well. But it comes from Galatians chapter 5, verse 13. And I love this because this is really Paul talking about what it means to be the nature of Christian freedom and what that freedom means. And he says this: "For you were called to freedom, brothers and sisters. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for self-indulgence, but through love become slaves to one another." So, hey, welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, here we go. I got some note cards for this guy right here because I want to follow along. First of all, Jesse comes from the big, amazing town of Turtle Lake.
Who's been there?
Who's been? Yeah. And wait, why were you at Turtle Lake? Confession time, right? Make sure we know why they're at Turtle Lake. I was up there a couple weeks ago ice fishing on Lower Turtle Lake. You used to have a place, right?
Yeah, my parents had a cabin on Lower Turtle when I was a little kid.
And we got skunked.
You did.
It was a very cold day. But Turtle Lake, so born and raised?
Born and raised, yep. I was actually born in Rice Lake, but I grew up in Turtle Lake.
Okay.
So all through
young all the way up to high school. Just out of high school, I moved to Rice Lake. But yep, grew up in Turtle Lake. Let me see. I think I have a picture.
You probably have.
I don't use this.
There you go.
Yeah, so this would be...
Oh, look at that. Look at her glasses. I love it.
That is, so that's my mom, dad, my brother Kyle is the little one, my sister who's barely in the frame, her name's Amanda, and then I'm obviously there looking really cool. So that's me, and then this is one of my favorite pictures, by the way. This was my JV picture, football picture, and so I played sports in Turtle Lake. I did have more years after this. I did play in high school as well, but I played sports all the way through high school. Played football, I did hockey. I had to travel to Cumberland, which was about 12 miles away, to be able to play hockey. Turtle Lake didn't have that. And then I played golf. So those are
What
those
position?
Are my sports. I played on the line both sides despite number 81. I think in junior high it didn't really matter what number you wore, you just kind of did it. But yeah, so I played a line both sides. Kind of the highlight of my high school football career is we did go to state and won in 1995. Woo-hoo. The downside is I didn't play. I was a freshman, so.
Nice. Okay, so after you graduate from Turtle Lake, what happens after that? What happens after graduation and your family now?
Yeah, so I did a little bit of college, so I was really interested in technology when I was younger. And so I started in computer programming, and then I ended up getting hired by a company in Burnsville, Minnesota to build websites. So I ended up dropping out of college and started working in Burnsville, and that's really kind of where my adult career started, was in tech. And so that's kind of what I did. I didn't have a typical 4 years of college, but did that. And then, let me see, I'm so spacing what photos we have. Oh yeah, this is kind of part of that, part of my story. So this would be my mom's entire side of the family. If you couldn't tell, we're Vikings fans, but no joke there. So my grandpa is the guy in the middle with the super red face, and he'll be a part of my story as we move forward. But yeah, we were just really big Packer fans and still kind of are. So fast forward now to just out of high school. This is my wife, Chrissy. And so we met in 2000 and we got married in 2002. So that's cool. Kind of.
And you'll see Chrissy around here chasing after a couple kids.
After a couple, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so early childhood. I mean, typical elementary, right? You're like all of us. It was your typical. I'm getting up to the 8-year-old mark.
Gotcha.
You share with what, just how life was, and then that turning point in your life.
Yeah. So I missed. So I set all these up. I am not good with the slides. This is the first time I've done slides in a message. So sorry. I apologize.
We forgive you here.
So after we got married, one of the things my wife and I struggled with for 10 years. So married in 2002, for 10 years we struggled with infertility. So we did have a couple of miscarriages. But we eventually adopted a set of twins who were from Eau Claire in a really difficult situation. And so the story behind that is really cool, but it would probably take the entire time to tell it. So we adopted these kids, and as I mentioned, my grandpa was just a huge part of our life. I didn't grow up in the church. My family we just didn't do that. My grandfather, he had accepted Jesus when I was born, and he got sober. So he had struggled with alcoholism almost his entire life. When I was born, he got sober. And so he was really the spiritual cornerstone for me. My parents really didn't offer that, but he was very serious about his faith. And so us adopting the kids was, really a faith step for us, and that came from him. And so this happened in 2012, and their names are Bo and Bailey. And so fast forward 2 years, my grandpa got sick, and this is probably, I think, his last day. And when he passed away, it was super tough for us because, again, he was really the spiritual kind of cornerstone of our family, not just for me, but like the entire family. And so for us, Chrissy and I, another story which is really crazy, as soon as he passed away, something crazy happened. We ended up getting pregnant, and this time we were actually able to carry that through. And
yes,
we had this guy, and we gave him the name of my grandpa. And so really in the same transition of my grandpa passing away, Jack was he came right after that. So my grandpa passed away in April of 14, and Jack came in November of 14. So he knew, my grandpa did know that we were able to have a child, and that was a big deal for him. And so against all odds, like the doctors told us it was going to be absolutely impossible for us to have kids, like a 0.03% chance that it would happen. And so we had Jack, and we would ask people, to continue to pray for us because it was tough, right? And then we had Judah, which was awesome. And then we took this picture thinking that this was kind of the squad. And then we had London. And so now we tell people to pray for us, but for a completely different reason. So we have 5 kids, and I don't know what the next picture is. We're about to find out. Oh yeah, this was our Christmas photo in 2020 or 21, right, when toilet paper was a shortage, and there were a lot of things happening. You'd have to study that, but yeah. So that's our family, and that's kind of where we're at. So let me just see where we're at here as far as slides. Okay, yeah. So now we'll go back to 1988. Is that cool? So in 1988, I was 8 years old, and one of the biggest defining moments in my life, and still to this day, really, is my mom was diagnosed with MS. And my parents both had really good jobs, and as a result of her getting sick, we lost everything. So we had a really good life by all social standards. We had a lake house and a house that we lived in. We had multiple boats and all the vehicles and all the stuff. And literally overnight, all of that changed. And when that changed, so did our social group, and so did our friends, and so did things in a small school. So it got really, really difficult for me as a young kid. And then the other thing that my parents are amazing, but one thing they didn't do was help walk me through the reality of what was going on. And so since I was 8 years old, I've always struggled with major anxiety. And so I would spend every night as a little kid coming downstairs after knowing she was sick. I would sneak downstairs and everybody was sleeping, and I would just sit by her and make sure she was breathing. So I did that for a couple of years, and still to this day, it's tough to kind of walk through all of that. And so I wrestle with a lot of that. That's just a reality in my life. And so my mom, when she got sick, it was, like I said, 1988. She did have, she had some good times where after the diagnosis, I think she was able to go probably about 5 or 6 years relatively normal with the treatments that she had received from the doctors. And so she was pretty independent. She helped out a lot in the school and did things like that with the kids, with my brother and sister. I'm gonna see where we're at next. But this is her now, and this was a couple of years ago, actually, year and a half ago. And so she stays home. She can't get out of that bed, and my dad is her primary caretaker. And so, we're at a place in our life right now where she's failing, and so we know any day that we'll receive a phone call. And so that's been a difficult thing for us, for our family. And then my dad, as I said, is her primary caretaker, and so he's multiple times quit his jobs, and he just stays home and does whatever he can to take care of her. So that's really what her grandkids know, is that, and she'd be a fantastic grandma, because she was that's what she'd want to be. So that was really a defining moment in my life. Obviously that's kind of the downside. The upside is, because of some of the valleys and some of the struggle, I think I was much more attracted to what my grandpa talked about, because it offered hope. Jesus offered hope. And so really around the time that she started getting sick and the disease started to progress is when I started to get involved in ministry and in church. And we'll talk more about some of the things that I do or did and still kind of do. But yeah, I mean, really a big part of my faith journey is born out of struggle, because there was nothing else. I didn't have a lot of hope in the midst of some of those situations.
Because that was life-altering. I mean, there's a lot of events that he has shared with me that we want to unpack with you, throughout the course of your ministry here at Central, or else this message would be 5 hours long. But that truly, 1988, that truly altered the course of your life, your family's life, especially your mother's life. So through all of that and how it changed everything so drastically, how did you end up you were talking about the hope in Jesus Christ. I mean, your grandfather, but you went off into ministry. I mean, you're here today probably because of a lot of what you experienced.
Yeah, the step into ministry was actually a really kind of a crazy one, and again, it would take forever to unpack this. But when in 2001, my grandpa, I was going through a tough time for other reasons, and he invited me to go on a mission trip to Haiti. And it was a 10-day mission trip to Haiti, which was a long time for someone who's never been on a mission trip. And that was kind of a defining moment for me. There were a lot of scary moments, a lot of things I saw that really changed the way that I thought. And when I got back, I kind of went back to living the same life, back to my job and doing what I did. But it encouraged me to check out church because I felt like there was something more. And so there's a church in Rice Lake, Wisconsin called Red Cedar Community Church, or Red Cedar Church now. And my wife and I, Chrissy, started attending church, and it was in a storefront at the time. And the worship leader was a very charismatic guy from Oklahoma. He was like 6'2", red hair, no eyebrows, and he could sing. I don't know.
No
it's
eyebrows.
like you just remember. I don't know. So, but he was awesome, and I just felt like I wanted to connect with him, and so I did. Joined the softball team, and at that time I wasn't really interested in music per se, but I joined the softball team, and the only thing I could think of to introduce myself to him was, would you give me guitar lessons? And he agreed. We worked out a deal, and I bought a guitar, and I think within the first couple of months I was able to play. And so I really started to like it, and it really started to become something that I was passionate about. And then he invited me to go on a conference, and I told this story to the church, or to the staff in one of our interviews. He invited me to go to a conference in Texas, and that there were just a lot of things that happened, but one thing on that trip was I really felt called, like something inside of me was saying, this is what you're supposed to do with your life. And in the conference, it was a worship team that was playing, and it just moved me to the point where I just knew that something was gonna come of this. And so when we got back to Rice Lake, I had asked my friend, his name was Dusty, I asked Dusty what it took to become a worship leader in a church. And his answer, unfortunately, was you need to go to college and you need to pay for it. And that was really, really the answer. And so for me, it felt unattainable. So I kind of went back to daily life. But then eventually some things happened at the church that led him out. And when he left the church, I just, by a miracle only, is the only thing I can say, the lead pastor asked me if I would be interested in taking the worship leader position, to which I had no experience, none whatsoever, other than I could play guitar. And the church was about 600 or 700 people at the time. And so it was really kind of school of the hard knocks, trying to figure it out. But it was most definitely what I was supposed to do. And that was in 2004 when I started there. And it's a long time since then. So.
All right, we're going to make a shift here, but it's time out. I want to play a little game with you. Okay? I'm going to read you two things, and you have to choose one.
Okay.
Okay, first one we already know, Packers, Vikings.
Yeah, Packers.
Will he retire or come back? Or traded?
Trade.
Traded. Ketchup or ranch?
Ranch.
Ooh. Pineapple pizza or candy corn?
Ooh, yuck. Pass.
Pass. All right, fine. Do you prefer air guitar or air drums?
Air Jordans. Drums.
Air drums, Air Jordans. This one is super simple. Blue jeans or athletic wear?
Yep, athletic wear for sure.
Will we ever see you in jeans?
I did it for Christmas.
Okay. Per our conversation at staff the other day, dog or cat?
Dog. Yes, the white one.
Would you rather attend a party or host a party?
Host.
Host. Sneaker shoes or, no, we already know that. Sneaker shoes. Espresso or drip coffee?
I don't know.
You don't?
Just coffee.
Okay.
Quick Trip.
Quick trip. Text or phone call?
Text.
Text. Instagram or Twitter?
Oh, Instagram.
Do you prefer photos or video?
Video.
Okay. Shopping online or in store?
Online.
Online? Okay. Now we're gonna go to one word. You can only answer this with one word. Here we go. And I didn't prep them on this one. What you have a phobia for?
Does it have to be?
It's gotta be fast.
Serious?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be serious. No, lighthearted.
People.
People. Favorite hobby?
Shoe shopping.
Favorite book in the Bible?
Galatians.
Your dream job? Central.
Central.
Describe your office. One word.
Cool.
It actually is really cool. He's got this huge TV and ESPN plays on it all day long. I'm gonna move in with him. An activity you think, an activity that happens in culture, whether it's the kids or the adults, that you think should be banned. That's a hard one.
Ice cream. I don't know.
Ice cream. A habit you'd love to give up.
Anxiety.
Anxiety, yeah, okay. And finally, then we're done, we'll move on. One word, describe your life.
Full.
Full, cool. All right, so through all of this, worship leading and whatnot, out of this births this, it's called 513 Free, and I'm just gonna leave it at that, and you take over. Like, where did this begin? The band is essentially a band, but it's way bigger than just a band. 513 Free. Does anybody get the connection? 513, we read it at the beginning. Galatians what? 513, so go ahead.
So in 2004, I started ministry at Red Cedar. And in 2007, we started a ministry called 513 Free. And so the idea behind it was, it was sort of born, I went to a conference in Nashville, Tennessee, and it was a large worship conference, and it had artists that you would know the names of, like Chris Tomlin, David Crowder, people like that, people whose songs we sing. And we went with a group of people in 2005. And one of the things, there are some speakers that I just didn't want to sit through and listen to, so we would step out. And one time I stepped out of the conference, there were probably like 30,000 people at this. I stepped out of the conference and just was going to go for a walk in downtown Nashville. And as we walked out, there were a line of homeless people alongside the edge of the arena. And I really wrestled with that idea that a large group of us that had the financial resources to be able to afford to go to something like this, not just attend the conference, but all of the things that were associated with it, had the privilege to go in and hear great music, be connected to God, hear great speakers. It really bothered me that the people that were sitting outside were just kind of getting what we didn't want of our food from Chick-fil-A. And I really struggled with that. And so a couple years of wrestling with that, I felt like we needed to do something, or I needed to do something. And so we formed a ministry called 513 Free, and again, the name comes from Galatians 5:13, which says, "You, my brothers, are called to be free, but don't use your freedom for your own selfish nature. Rather, serve one another in love." And so we took the idea of building a band that would be, in our minds, something that people would want to hear, and we wanted to take it to places that were often forgotten. And so we spent 12 years and about 895 shows across the country going into prisons, homeless shelters, rehab centers, and other places that people are often forgotten. We also did play at some music festivals like Life Fest, One Fest, and things like that. But our heart and our mission was really to be with people that people had forgotten about. And my friend Michael, who played keys tonight, he was really a part of it since 2009. I met him when we had Phil Wickham in town, and he and I that's where we met. And so we did that, and it was really one of the most rewarding experiences I think that any of us have had. One of the things that made us really unique in that way is we were a nonprofit. And so in 12 years, we didn't charge one dime for anything that we did. Wow. We never asked for any money for any shows. We gave away every CD, we gave away every t-shirt, we gave away everything. Yeah. And it was a volunteer ministry really for the first 6.5 years. And then for the last few years, it was actually full-time. So we had at one point 9 staff members. We had started, not only did we do music, one of the things that we kind of made a shift in 2014-15, we had been doing a lot of different things. We had been in Haiti, we've been in different, and I'll share some of this in a second, but just all over the place. We did a lot of different things, but in 2014-15, we really refined the ministry to become just focused on prisons. And so our mission statement was boldly sharing the gospel with the incarcerated and those at risk, and we built multiple programs out of that. So we had different ministry leaders. We created an art magazine for inmates where they would submit their art and their faith stories. We would design it, print it and ship it back to prisons all across the country. So inmates would have a voice with other inmates, and it was faith-based. It was pretty cool. We started a mentorship program downtown Eau Claire called Tandem, and Tandem is a one-on-one mentorship program for at-risk youth. We felt if we could start mentoring those kids, that would help keep them out of prison. And so that has now merged with a ministry called Treehouse, which is a nationwide youth mentorship program. We had a recidivism program, which was housing for inmates who were transitioning out of prison, and we were working with different businesses in town to help them get jobs and hopefully reduce that rate, a recidivism rate. And then we also spent a lot of our time going into prisons across the country, some pretty crazy prisons, actually.
Yeah, share that. You know, you and Michael in prison, like, I can't even conceptualize worship in prison.
Yeah,
and we're not talking like the Chippewa County Jail.
I
right?
mean, we had played there a handful of times, but yeah. We've been in some really crazy places. So probably one of the craziest trips would have been Easter in 2014. We went with Prison Fellowship to Chicago, and we went to Cook County Jail the day before, or it was Good Friday maybe, for Easter. We were Cook County Jail. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's right in the heart of downtown Chicago, and that's where some of the craziest stuff happens. And so we were there, and then we played at a prison called Stateville on Sunday, Easter Sunday, and I'll just share one crazy prison ministry story, and this would be it. Stateville is it's one of 2 in the world prisons that has a roundhouse. So all of the cells are in a big circle. And it's deemed to be like one of the most inhumane things that anybody has had to endure, because there's absolutely no privacy for the inmates. So imagine being in a cell and never being able to hide from anybody. And so this prison was built, I want to say, sometime in the 1800s. It was really old. When we walked in, the steps going up to where we would process and check in were made of marble, but it was so used that the marble had worn away. So there was like, kind of like indents in the steps. And as we got to the top of the steps where we were at the front desk, you could hear the inmates in the roundhouse just moaning. It was really horrifying sound. Still use skeleton keys. And when we go to prisons, it's kind of intense, because we would bring as much sound equipment as we would use here for a worship service. And so everything has to be accounted for. They open up our trailer, they count every cable, they make sure we're not hiding anything. It's pretty intense. Once they check it, then we have to push these big wheeled road cases through the prison, or the prison yard, one or the other. And in this case, at Stateville, it was through the prison. So as we're pushing it through, we see signs on the walls. Every probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 rooms, there would be a sign that would say when shots are fired, and it would show somebody under a table. And so it was very common for people to be shot at in the prison by the guards. And so we get to the gym, and in this gym, not all of them, like Chippewa County is not going to have officers with weapons in any sort of protective way. It's not like that in the minimum or even the medium security prisons. Even some of the max weren't like that. But this one they did, and so it was a large gym, and in each corner there were officers with rifles, and they basically scanned the room the entire time. We were told by our prison, the people who were leading the trip, when we pray with the inmates at the end, to not close our eyes. And that I've never heard before. But in this case, Easter Sunday, the chaplain had asked us if the inmates' choir could come and perform with us, and we said, sure. We did not realize that they were just going to grab our instruments when we were taking a break. And so it's a little bit scary after what we had heard. It's not uncommon. It wouldn't be uncommon for us to invite somebody up to play if we had gotten permission for that prior. But in this case, we hadn't, and every single instrument that we had that was sitting there, they just went and grabbed. And so they started playing, and they were phenomenal. Like, so I had never heard anything like it. Super gospel blues feel, and they were amazing singers, and so they were singing these Easter songs. And I had eventually asked the guy who was leading our trip, the CEO of Prison Fellowship, I said, why don't we just let them lead the worship service? And so we just sat down for the entire set, and we let the inmates lead. One of the craziest things about that is the chaplain was telling us a story that it was a huge blessing for them to be able to play, because prior to this event, I think it was like 2 years prior, all of the musical equipment was taken away due to behavioral issues. And so the guy who was playing the keyboard had never played a keyboard before. He had taken a piece of cardboard, and checked out a book on music theory from the library, drew a piano, and figured out how to play the piano on a piece of cardboard. So it was the first time he had ever played a piano. He sounded fantastic. So it was one of the coolest, probably one of the most memorable Easter Sundays I've ever had. So.
Okay, and then you got to share as quick as you can. You 513 went down to Haiti.
Yeah, so we went to Haiti. 2014, Michael was with us. We'll remember this one well. I'll say it quick. But on our way back, we were given a warning that there were potentially protests. And in Haiti, there's one main highway that spans really the entire country. And so we had left a day early, which is about a 6-hour drive. We left a day early. We had 2 vehicles, a bus full of all of my friends, and then I was in a truck that was following behind probably about a mile, so I had to stop for fuel. And so the communication is not like it is here in Haiti, and we started to catch up to the bus, and we were coming up to a hill. The bus was on the other side, and as we came over the hill, we could see that we had hit this protest, and our bus had been turned sideways on this highway, and there were violent protesters, like all you could see were their eyes, and they were throwing the bottles with the fire and rocks, and they had the highway completely blocked. And so as we came back over the top, the Haitian pastor who was driving my vehicle was in a major panic, and we had a couple of Haitian folks in the back seat as well, and they were having panic attacks. You could tell this wasn't good. And so during this trip, I was actually texting my wife and our board of directors that we were all, this was it, because the pastor told us that there was a box truck blocking the highway. The tires were slashed, and they threw the keys in the woods, and there was no way we were going to get by. And so we had really all kind of resolved to, this is it. And so, it was one of the most intense things that had ever happened. And as we're praying and hoping this isn't it, all at the same time, some police came in from behind us. And then in the front, as I looked in the front, I could see UN basically in a huge line with the shields and guns just starting to clear the road. And so as they cleared, we went through, and everybody in the vehicles were ducking, and I had my bath towel over my head in the case that things hit the windows, and there's a picture.
You have a picture. A couple.
That one. There you go. So this was the window of the bus, and Michael was in this bus. And had that been over just a little bit further and not hit those metal supports, the bus driver probably would have been dead. So, we made it to the next town, and I was worried it was going to happen again because we were only a couple hours into our drive. But we made it to Port-au-Prince, which is where the airport is at, and I don't think any of us have ever felt better to be in Miami than we did when we had gotten back from that trip. So it was pretty crazy.
Well, circling back, so that amazing stories, but now if somebody told you 12 years ago that you'd be sitting here at Central Lutheran sharing your faith story, what would you have said?
Well, I think for me it would just be I just trust that God's plan is God's plan, and I think I would be as excited, I would believe, as I am to be here now. I think it's just knowing that, it's God that orchestrates the plan. Yeah. So
help us. How would you? Because I get to work with this awesome dude each day as we plan worship, and we really are always thinking, how do we help people have this experience with God? How would you describe briefly what worship means now that you've led worship in large churches, small churches, you've led worship in other countries and in prisons? How would you describe what it means to worship now in your world?
I think, one of the most important things that I recognize is probably a couple. One is just being real and being authentic. And so the one thing about prisons or homeless shelters, rehab centers is most people have nothing to hide, nothing to prove. And so they sing very freely because they recognize that's their only hope. And then I think the other thing that I would say is just it's just awesome. I saw a video, then I'll totally botch this, but somebody had asked a professional musician who he would sing with when he got to heaven. And his answer was, there's no better sound, and I would agree with this because I've had so many experiences with it. There's no better sound than hearing a group of people singing together for the same reason and the same purpose. And so that's been one of my favorite things about church, is being with groups of people who have the same vision, the same focus, and want to sing. And there's so much power in that. And we've seen that time and time again, whether it's in prisons or wherever, that when groups of people are singing together, things happen. And it doesn't have to be like a crazy Pentecostal experience. It's just singing, lifting your voices in the Bible. It happens a lot. Mm-hmm. And so that to me is, the heart behind it.
And what I enjoy, what I've gotten to know about you in the last only 2 months, is just your authenticity. Like, you want this to be a place, and it was easy for me to just gravitate towards, because it's exactly what I envision God's church is, just a place where we all can just come in and feel like we can be ourselves, right? Amen? Where we have a church that's relevant, that speaks to the stuff that's going on in our lives, the stuff that you and we all can hide from everybody else that doesn't live under a roof, that we can hide all that stuff, but yet we take it with us 24/7 so that we can come in. And I've really noticed that in the songs that you choose to lead us in worship with, is you're really touching on some deep struggles. And so what I want to do is I want to close this little message time by inviting Michael and Brittany up, because you want to share with us a song that you wrote, and a lot of that comes from your life experience, both personal, from 1988, all that stuff, through.
Well, sit back and just relax and take a deep breath, because what I'm about to say has been weighing on my chest. If I don't get it out, I'm afraid I might digress. And no, I'm not suicidal, but sometimes I get depressed, and there are days I wish that I could climb in someone else's mind so I could see the world I know through a different set of eyes. But I would quickly settle for a little bit of hope that in the end, when I die, I won't die alone. Oh, the weight of it all, oh, the weight of it all is coming down on me. Snap back to my reality. I think the world is mad at me. Well, frantically, I'm panicking, but that's the way it has to be. Catastrophe, insanity, the words I use to help you see the war I wage inside my head, this broken down reality. These thoughts that flood my mind, you'll never see them in my face. I can never let you think I'm anything but great. Oh, the weight of it all. Will I bend? Will I break? All I know is I don't know how much more I can take. Oh, the weight of it all. Down on me. Oh, the weight of it all. Oh, the weight of it all is coming down on me. Well, honestly, this honesty is way too much for me to bear. I'd rather talk around in circles than be real with you and share my fear of dying in a car, or getting cancer in these bones and being buried in a grave. Not sure where I will go. This fear has always been my prison, and I'm locked up in the hole. I could let myself out, but I'm not quite sure where I will go. It'll take a miracle to save me from myself inside my mind, but I'll say this prayer again with hope. He'll answer me sometime. Oh, the weight of it all.